Yeah, I thought we encapsulated that well. And then, you talked about it, and obviously it is the topic of a lot of discussion online, no matter where you go, whether it is the fan base or the talking heads, or I guess us in the media, is the Geno Smith situation and your quarterback, right?
Hmm.
Um, my thoughts are, and obviously we'll get your thoughts. My thoughts are, Geno's not your future at quarterback. You're not looking 5 years down the line and Geno Smith is taking snaps from whatever center you've got by that point in time, right? I like that's not it, but he realistically could be your quarterback for probably 2 more years. Um, and there isn't going to be any sort. I was thinking about this last night. Of the many things to think about, laying and tossing and turning in bed, is the Seahawks quarterback situation. Um, no young quarterback of your future, no franchise guy is going to hit the market in any way, shape, or form via free agency or the trade market this offseason. Unless something crazy happens, like Justin Herbert says, I hate Harbaugh. I want to leave the Chargers. They've given me Lad McConkey and I love Will Disley, but Will Disley are my top receiving options, right? And he wants to be a real quarterback and throw to DK Metcalf and JSN. Like I'm sure he would love that. Um, but you know, so that's not no nothing's gonna come your way in that regard, right?
Hmm.
Um, and even the quarterback class this year, like I I'm not the biggest college football guy outside of Washington. I don't pay too much attention, but even then I know this quarterback class isn't super stacked. I know you're not gonna get a Shadur Sanders, you're not picking that high, and I've even seen grades where scouts don't have him that high,
Yeah.
right? So you're not gonna draft somebody super high. You might take a guy in the mid to later rounds, which I don't doubt they do, right? I know listening to some of the broadcasts, they brought up how Seattle was a team that even with Russell Wilson here, they were looking at Patrick Mahomes in the draft and scouting him extensively. So, um, how I view Geno is that he is essentially he should be your bridge, and he is the best option that you have right now to
Yeah.
compete in the time, like current time being. Um, that's how I view it. Like, obviously, the interceptions are great. I wouldn't give him 100% fault on every interception, but there were some decisions where, and again, you wrote about it, so I'm sure you can expand on it. But, just forcing it, could have lived to fight another down, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think there is a better option out there for you. How the contract situation plays out, I don't know because I know he wants an extension, right? And I don't know if he'd settle for like a 2 year, a bump, and I'm sure that would kind of help their cap situation currently to get an extension done. That's a whole other discussion, but at least with the current situation, I am more than happy with Geno Smith as your quarterback currently.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't, yeah, I yapped a lot there, but I want to hear your thoughts as well.
I mean, I basically agree. Especially with the comment about trying to force things, trying to make something out of nothing. That happened a lot, and I think that's really responsible for most of the interceptions. But especially during that like tough losing streak in the middle of the season, like it wasn't Geno's fault, right? I mean, we can. I brought up the passer rating earlier, and like maybe this Geno Smith season kind of is evidence against like the usefulness of passer rating because he was getting so many opportunities to pass because this offense was unwilling or incapable or some combination of the two of running the ball. Um, so Geno was out there throwing 30, 40 times a game. Um, and picking up so many yards. But like during that rough losing streak, he wasn't really the problem. He was trying to make something out of nothing because he was being given nothing. Um, I mean, like was it 4 or 5 botched snaps in 2 games? Especially in the red zone, like that can't happen. Like, and some of those were, you know, maybe more catchable than others, but they were still problems, right? That didn't start with Geno, and I think he gets a lot of blame because he's the quarterback, he's the leader, he's the marquee guy. Everyone, he touches the ball on every snap, right? Um, but really, I think Geno's not your problem, and I think yeah, you want him for 2 more years to try to you know, win the West, and I think Geno's definitely capable of doing that. I think this is a team that's capable of doing it. Like I said earlier, you had two one-score games that, if you get lucky on one play in those games, you win. And one of them was against the Rams, um, in overtime. And really, like, yeah, I think you want Geno for a couple more years. I think you find someone in the draft, probably, yeah, next class. Not really this one. I don't know too much about some of the other quarterbacks. Kind of like you, but different. I mostly watch UT specifically, and having done that, I don't think I want to watch, 5 more years of Quinn Ewers ball. I love Quinn Ewers. He's fun. He's a fun guy to watch, but I will tear my hair out. I'll go bald by the time I'm 30. I not to mention the B word or anything, but
Wow.
wow, yeah. Um, but I think you want Gino. I think you give him that extension. Um, if anything, just because that he does have those leadership qualities that
Mm.
you really want from a kind of interim quarterback. If you've decided, if you're the front office, that you've decided that Gino is an interim quarterback and not someone that you want to go deep with in the next 2 years, win now. Um, you want those leadership qualities to craft your next generation of players, and I think that's what Mike McDonald, as a new head coach, um, especially needs, is like some kind of continuity from
Yeah.
the Carroll regime as he's building up his new team.
I think that's a big part of it is the continuity, right? I mean, and the same that goes into our sort of next topic is the biggest issues with the season. What factors really played into why Seattle isn't playing this weekend, and we're not, kind of obviously it would have depended on seating, but watching the games, right?
Hmm.
Um, just going after different center and don't get me wrong, I was excited. I liked Timmy coming out of Michigan. I thought maybe he could, get some looks, play well enough to get a starting role. I mean, he played as a starter. I think he finished the year as a starter.
Hmm.
But obviously he's not a highly touted guy, and he didn't really have extensive minutes starting. He didn't have that experience. And you go from Connor Williams, the shell of Connor Williams, who retired mid-season,
On
um,
day 12 of a 14-day bye.
which fascinating, right? What an experience that was, and what an experience the Seahawks offensive line was, right? Well, again, we'll talk about that with the sort of greater issues here, but I think that is a big thing is the continuity aspect, yeah, with Gino. And I really do. I think that they can compete for, obviously competing for a title is a difficult thing, but I think he gives them a great chance because again, if you look at it week in and week out, he was at the top of the passing yards list for a while there. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, and you talk about the leadership aspect. Obviously, this locker room, you know, feels great about him. They've rallied around the guy for the past few years. Obviously his story has been great, and he's a guy that they can relate to, all that sort of thing. It all plays a factor. Um, so yeah, I would take that as opposed to the alternative, which is the unknown of whatever the hell quarterback they would draft in the mid to late rounds, um
Some
or
21-year
Sam
old
Howell,
kid out of
which
somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, and as much as there are certain folks online who would want to go with Sam Howell, and as tough as it was that one time he came in for very brief work
Hmm.
with Gino out, like you can't judge the guy strictly on that, but he's
Well, he
I
attempted
trust
14
Gino.
passes. Oh, yeah, good. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say I trust Gino to run the offense more, and the leadership aspect, and the familiarity aspect. It just makes all of the more sense to stick with him there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as long as it's nothing too crazy, I don't see what the downsides of an extension are. Obviously, players want to be respected. They want to feel like they're valued with their big contract. So that'll be interesting to watch play out, and that's its own discussion.
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now.
Yeah.
Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit. From now, we've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything
right.
all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. And in a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the storm and the rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see align kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the rain games, all the storm games. UW women's softball, UW women's basketball, UW women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these, we're talking about the rain, they've got their schedule out finally, but this will be our home for that.
Great.
The storm games on the road, this is our home.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen, when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig.
Yes, you did.
Ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does. So that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.